My fellow Americans, as I stand here before you today, filming this YouTube video inside of my sublet studio apartment, I am moved to reflect on where I was at this exact moment, just 4 years ago. I was in the city of Cartersville, an hour north of Atlanta, standing in a drizzling rain in a cold gravel parking lot littered with flattened plastic bottles and cigarette butts, listening to a man explain to me for the 15th time through the cracked window of his idling pickup truck how to park a Class 8 combination tractor trailer. And I was worried. I was worried because I really needed the job. I was worried I wouldn't get the hang of trucking, worried that I would flunk out of truck school and have to find some other way to pay back the $4,000 tuition cost. I was worried because I knew that even if I did get the hang of trucking, the life that awaited me on the highway on the other side of that parking lot was lonely, brutal, and dangerous. Some of those worries were justified. Since that cold, damp morning in February of 2018, I've held 2 trucking jobs and I've quit 2 trucking jobs. Both of them paid me way more than I ever made back in the day when I was ride sharing for Uber and Lyft and Doordash and Postmates and Amazon. But I also worked way harder for the money. I delivered hundreds of thousands of tons of consumer goods and spent over 900 nights by myself in truck stop parking lots. I've driven over 350,000 miles and I've created over 3 videos for my YouTube channel. And it's not this one. I'm just a contributor here at the RideShare Guy. You can find my channel at the link below in the description. Please click on it. Thank you. I love you. And today, I'm here to give you a look at the state of the trucking industry in America right now, in the year of our Lord 2022, and finally answer the question of whether you, yes, you, should become a truck driver. According to the American Trucking Association, freight tonnage is expected to increase 24% in 2022, and the trucking industry needs to add 90,000 new drivers every year for the next decade to keep up with it all. You've probably seen the headlines. Maybe you've even cursed the so-called truck driver shortage while you scour your local grocery store for that one thing that the supply chain still can't seem to get back in stock. But I'm here to let you in on a little secret, one that the American Trucking Association doesn't want you to know. There is no shortage of truck drivers. There is a shortage of good trucking jobs. In California, for example, 640,000 people hold active commercial driver's licenses, and yet there are only 140,000 trucking jobs in the state. In 2020, the country's largest trucking companies averaged a 92% driver turnover rate, and at some companies, it's over 100%. The trucking industry relies on a steady supply of newbie drivers because they work for less money, which goes to show why the American Trucking Association is so dedicated to its driver shortage propaganda campaign. Much like Uber and Lyft, most trucking companies don't pay you for the time that you spend waiting around, and there is a lot of waiting around. The cents per mile pay structure allows companies to disguise how much or how little money you're actually making on an hourly basis. In my Why I Quit Trucking video that I posted over on my YouTube channel, I calculated that my average hourly rate over 39 months of OTR trucking worked out to less than $9 per hour. Of course, that's averaged out over every single hour that I spent away from home, including the roughly 6.5 hours of sleep that I was getting every night. And of course, it doesn't price in the thousands of dollars that I saved on rent, utilities, and gas by living on the road full time. During my best year of trucking, I made over $75,000, and by the time I quit, my savings account was the fattest it's ever been. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. My relationships suffered, I got depressed, I developed health problems from sitting so much. And when COVID hit, I had to live out of the truck for 5 months straight without seeing a single friend or family member because I couldn't afford to risk infecting them. That was my abridged experience in trucking. You can hear me complain more about it at length over on my channel, but ultimately there are as many different experiences in trucking as there are truck drivers. You can spend 30 hours a week just moving trailers around one single parking lot, or you can drag one trailer all over the entire continent for months at a time. You can work as a 1099 contractor or as a W-2 employee. You can drive for a mom and pop shop or a huge company fleet with thousands of trucks. You can even buy your own and start your own company. Most truckers are paid by the mile like I was, but you could land a job that pays by the trip, by the hour, or by the month. Some places even have unions. The most readily available type of job in the industry by far is over-the-road driving. This is what I did. But after you've got some experience, you'll qualify for many other types of trucking jobs where you can be at home more often, or make more money, or both if you're really lucky. So, the big question, will things get better for truckers in 2022? I hope they will, but they probably won't. 69% of hauls made by trucking companies in 2020 were under 500 miles long. And over the last 5 years, that average length of haul has continued to drop. This should indicate an increase in the availability of more humane, local, and regional trucking jobs, but that availability still varies a lot. If you're willing to do over-the-road driving, it doesn't really matter where you live now because you won't be there much anyway. But if you've already put down roots and you would prefer to spend your downtime at home with your family, then your job options in trucking will be more limited. What about pay? One source reports that average truck driver pay went up 3.5% in 2021 to about $58,000. But inflation over that same period went up 7.5%, meaning that on average, America's truck drivers took a pay cut last year. That's right, the essential heroes who have been delivering all of our groceries throughout the last 2 years of a global pandemic earned less last year than they did the year before. I'm definitely not going to contrast this depressing realization with screenshots of earnings reports from America's largest trucking companies. Nope, not gonna go there. Just gonna keep moving right along. Anyway, there's no indication that truck driver pay will improve in 2022. In fact, some economists say that adjusted for inflation, wages for US truck drivers have fallen by up to 50% over the last 40 or 50 years. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is equally unenthused about trucking, putting median wages for truck drivers in 2020 at just $47,000 annually, with below average 6% job growth expected over the next decade. Now, $47,000 a year seems obscenely low for over-the-road driving in 2022. Maybe for local jobs, but I regularly see OTR jobs advertising 70 grand and up. But the point is, your earnings in trucking will vary wildly depending mainly on where you're working and how much suffering you're willing to put up with. For the smaller percentage of drivers who own their own trucks, net earnings can also vary wildly. ATBS, an accounting firm serving thousands of owner-operators, calculated that its clients averaged $70,000 in net earnings in 2021, or a net income of about 70 cents per mile. That's up from an average of $65,000 in 2020, a 10.2% increase, and more than inflation over the same period. Huzzah! So some truckers did get an actual raise last year. DAT reports that spot market rates went up by double-digit percentages since last year for all types of cargo. Of course, fuel, maintenance, and equipment costs went up a lot too, but it looks like on average, owner-operators still came out ahead. It's important to realize though that while all truckers are affected by the overall economy, owner-operators feel it the most. In 2020, for example, many owner-operators got hurt badly by economic fallout from COVID, and some even went out of business. Since getting past that hurdle, it seems like business has been good for owner-operators, but it's anyone's guess whether the freight market will stay hot in the months and years ahead. The best part of the trucking industry is that it's still super easy to find truck driving jobs. If you have a clean CDL, you'll be inundated with recruiting ads from every trucking company under the sun. They will court you with hiring bonuses, promise you top-of-the-line equipment, and assure you that you'll get more home time than you could possibly want. Know this, a lot of them are probably lying. Recruiters will say anything to get you in the door, but good trucking companies are few and far between. Likewise, becoming an owner-operator can sometimes prove to be a gauntlet of unexpected maintenance costs, liabilities, and red tape. It's nearly impossible to get a favorable financing deal when buying a semi-truck, and lease purchase contracts are infamous for giving drivers the short end of the stick. Your mileage may vary, I'm just reporting the word on the street here. To make it in trucking in 2022, or whenever you're watching this, you will need determination, patience, a keen nose for BS, and a willingness to forgo flush toilets for long periods of time. If you got all that, and you really want the job, then the big question is, should you do it? Is now the time? Should you become a trucker? It depends! If you're willing to put up with a well above average amount of misery and BS for the next 2 to 5 years, you can sock away a lot of money. More than you might be able to working at most normal entry-level jobs. But if you're young and you want to build a skill that you can rely on for the rest of your life, my advice is learn something else. It takes a rare breed just to tolerate truck driving, let alone enjoy it over the long term, and tech companies are inching closer to making self-driving trucks every day. On the flip side, if you can't see yourself in a truck for any longer than a year, just skip it. Your first year of trucking is the most stressful and the least profitable, with pay for entry-level truck drivers averaging just $39,000 a year. You can definitely do better than that, especially if you're OTR, but the fact remains that it's really those second and third year earnings that really start to make truck driving worthwhile. And speaking of being a rookie, there's a new rule that just went into effect that requires new truck drivers to go through an approved training program before they get their CDL. Approved training programs have kind of been the default way to get your CDL for many years already, but do be aware that if you had just been planning to show up at the DMV in a semi-truck one day and take the CDL test, you can't do that anymore. The FMCSA basically said, no, you have to sit in a classroom and watch at least one PowerPoint. Anyway, if you think trucking might be the right move for you, head over to my YouTube channel and check out the two-part series I made on how to become a truck driver. It includes tips on how to avoid all the mistakes I made, including how you can get your CDL through an approved training program without having to pay $4,000 in tuition. You can find links in the description, or you can get to my channel by heading to truckingseriously.com. Or don't do any of that. Who am I to tell you how to live? Do whatever you want, man. Life is short. Best of luck to all of you out there. Be careful and drive safe.